It is not that 6 million Jews were murdered. Rather, there were 6 million murders, and in each case, 1 Jew was murdered.
Fred was 6 years old when the Germans invaded the Netherlands, and his mother realized that it was very dangerous. So Fred had to go and live with the strangers, and the only thing he took with him from home was a teddy bear. His only friend, his only companion, the only thing that he could share, the real story, that he's Jewish, that he misses his mommy, that he's scared. The story of this family is a happy story because they all managed to survive. After the war, they reunited. They immigrated to the United States. Fred grew up to become a psychologist. Well, so when the curator of Yad Vashem, Yehudit, heard this story, he said, fantastic, this is a very good story about a child in hiding. Let's ask Fred to loan us Bear for the exhibition. But when she finished, he said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Bear and me have never parted. We go to the office every morning together. We go back every evening, back home. For 60 years, we never parted. So she said, you know what? Think about it, and let's talk in a couple of weeks. And indeed, that's what she did. 2 weeks later, she called him once again. And this time, his answer was a little different, and now I'm quoting. And he said, I had a long conversation with my bear, and I explained to him that for the first time ever, we will have to part. He will have to go to Israel to tell the children of today what we went through. When they finished talking, she picked up the phone and she called the insurance company because this artifact had to be shipped from the United States to Israel. And they asked her, how much is it worth? So she said, well, how much is the Mona Lisa worth? That's how much this bear is worth for this gentleman. Well, the bear was packed in a big box, and when they started unpacking the box, a tiny bear came out of it. It looks like a rag, but it meant everything for this gentleman. A special case was built for Bear, and it was placed in the No Child's Play exhibition. A while afterwards, the Prime Minister of Romania came to Yad Vashem for a visit, and our curator, Yehudit, the same Yehudit, took him for a tour in the children's exhibit. And as they were walking out, he said, well, you know, this is unbelievable. How can I help Yad Vashem? And she said, you know, we want to build a synagogue. And there are a lot of Jewish artifacts that were left behind in Romania. Can you help us get these artifacts? The Prime Minister of Romania said, an institution that takes care of its artifacts like it was the Mona Lisa, I'm willing to help. So thanks to Fred and to Bear, we received from Romania 4 Torah arcs. So we wanted to build in Jerusalem at least one synagogue in memory of all those that were destroyed there.
Welcome to Fascination Israel. We report to you today from Yad Vashem. It is the world's most important institution dedicated to the memory of the Holocaust.
So the Valley of the Communities was established to commemorate the thousands of Jewish communities that existed throughout Europe for more than 1,000 years. My father-in-law, Reuven, is from Rozvadov. My father-in-law is from Częstochowa, closer to Warsaw. And they were sent to Russia
They lost everything. When they arrived in Israel, they came with nothing, right?
Absolutely nothing. They came on the boat unafraid in 47. When they did come here, they had nothing. They had the clothes they had on their body, and they had a little baby girl.
Sara Granitza is the director of the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem. In her own family, she has Holocaust survivors, which makes her work so special at this unique place.
So where does the name Yad Vashem come from? What does it mean?
So the name Yad Vashem comes from Isaiah. Isaiah 56. In Hebrew, the verse is, "Venatati lachem beveiti uvechomotai Yad Vashem asher lo yicharet." And within my house and within my walls, I shall give you a memorial, Yad, and a name, Vashem, which shall never be cut off. The Nazis tried to dehumanize the Jewish people, take away their individuality, take away their personality, take away their names. And we in Yad Vashem don't want to talk about the numbers. We want to talk about each one and one and one and one, the people.
Perhaps you have asked yourself sometimes, why in the two biblical books, Chronicles, there are so many names? In Hebrew, names are very important, and they all have a meaning. But most of all, every name is important to God. And Yad Vashem is taking great care for the names of the Holocaust victims not to be forgotten.
So the people in Auschwitz, they got all their number tattooed on their skin, and actually all of them, they lost their name. Is this the reason why you have the Hall of Names here?
Absolutely. During the war, the Nazis tried to dehumanize the Jewish people. They took away their names, like you said, gave us numbers. They shaved their heads. They gave us uniforms. It's like there is no personality. There's nothing about the individual. Here in Yad Vashem, we want to bring back the names and the individual stories, because each and every one is the entire world. In the Gemara, in the Jewish tradition, we say, that who saves one life, it's as if he saved an entire world. But it goes the other way around as well. That who murders one person, that who takes away one life, it's as if he destroyed an entire world. Each and every one of them is an entire world. What could have come out of these people? I have with me a page of testimony that my father-in-law filled out for his sister and her husband and her son. So it's in Hebrew, but here it says Treblinka in Hebrew. They were murdered in 1943. They lived in Warsaw and they were taken to Treblinka. Treblinka was a death camp. Immediately when people were taken there, they were immediately gassed and murdered. And this is the type of pages that we have in these files here. So you can see that many of the shelves are filled, but part of the shelves are empty. We're still hoping to get more and more names, but we are in an 11th hour mission because the survivors are passing, they're getting older, and if we will not act now, we might never have this kind of information. So it's very, very important to get as many names as we can.
How many names did you find so far?
So we have 4,800,000. So it's more than 4 million, but we do not have the 6 million, and I probably will never have 6 million because I can tell you from my own family itself about little children who were murdered, and there is no one left who knows the name. So that's just one example. There is a page of testimony here in the Hall of Names of someone who filled out a page for the ice cream lady that used to sell ice cream near their school. She was a widower. She had to work to have money for herself and her children, but he doesn't know her name, and he doesn't know her children's name. So he called her the women from the ice cream store. That's the name that we have.
There are 1.5 million children killed in the Holocaust. Can you tell me more about this children's project?
The children is a special case because a child, he is so fragile, and as grown-ups, it's our responsibility to protect them. And there was no one to protect these children. When a child dies, when he's murdered, there is nothing left behind to tell his story. And the experience they went through is a very unique one because a lot of times what happened in the ghettos, in the camps, because they were small, it was easier for them to smuggle. So the situation within a family sometimes turned around. The father was taken, the mother is left with children, and her small children are now the ones who carry the responsibility of trying to smuggle in some food for the mother. So the whole story of children in the Holocaust is very unique, and we want to remember the 1,500,000 children who were murdered there.
Istvan Jakubowicz, 13 years old, Hungary.
Hadassa Rosen, 5 years old, Poland.
Michael Ubiel, 5-year-old, Poland.
Tuvia Versberg, 6 years old, Czechoslovakia.
Livka Mentovic, Battle Iceland, Yugoslavia.
In the Valley of Communities, 107 walls commemorate the more than 5,000 Jewish communities in Europe that were wholly or partially wiped out in the Holocaust.
The way the place is built is, on the one hand, like a map. If you go to the northeast part of the valley, you'll find the name of that community on the wall. On the other hand, it's also built like a maze. And that's how the Jewish people of Europe felt in those years. They're trapped in a maze. There's no way to escape. But you'll be killed if you're inside, but there's no way to escape and to go out of that place. If you look on top, you see greenery. So after the destruction, the valley, going down into the valley, like a grave, on top of it, there is rebirth. There is life.
But you could say the Holocaust survivors, actually, they were building Israel.
Absolutely, no question about it.
With nothing.
With nothing. With a lot of passion, with a lot of hope, with a lot of strive to make sure we are alive and we will stay alive. And we will build what is righteously ours, our country, with our language, with our tradition. So that's the Jewish people.
So this is the plate.
In honor of our big donors, and we're very proud to have amongst our donors the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem, who are our partners, and they actually built to together with Yad Vashem, the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, and they support us continuously, and we're honored to have them here amongst our other donors. They are our partners, and only with the help of these people can we, and these institutions, can we continue in doing our essential work.
Why do you think is it so important that Christians support Yad Vashem?
Well, the history of the Christian world and the Jewish world hasn't always been a good one, and the relationship wasn't very good. But we are very lucky to live in a generation that in the last years we are building good relationships, friendships, actually bridges of understanding and cooperation, and only together can we really make an impact on this world. So it's a great achievement to have the Christian embassy partner with Yad Vashem.
You have made me so rich. O God, please, let me share out your beauty with open hands.
The Jews in Europe after the war had no place to go to. When they tried to go back to their homes in Poland, there were pogroms there, like the Kelta pogrom. So they decided that there is no other place, they have to go back to their promised homeland, to come to the land of Israel. But who was ruling this area of the world at the time? The English Empire. And they made rules. They did not allow the Jews to come in, only very, very small amounts. My father-in-law and my mother-in-law, my husband's parents, and my husband's oldest sister were in Italy in DP camp, in displaced persons camp, and they managed to purchase a boat, an old boat, and they went on it, and they made their way to the land of Israel. And when they reached the shores of Haifa, they were caught by the English Air Force. And the English soldiers went into the boat. They took the Jewish newcomers off, and they put them on smaller boats, and they took them to Cyprus. In Cyprus, the English government built camps for the illegal immigrants. Unbelievable that in 1947, 2 years after World War II ended, the Western civilized world already knew what the Jewish people went through, and still there is no homeland for the Jewish people. And again, they're putting camps with barbed wires, with watch guards, and all of that. Only in 1948, with the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel, were they allowed to come in. World War II ended in 1945, the State of Israel was established in 1948. What happened in these 3 years? Where were all these Jewish people? So the story of the survivors after the war is a very, very difficult story. So my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, Reuven and Tzipora, and their baby daughter, Amalia, who was already 2 years old, came to Israel. And then the independence war broke out here, and immediately my father-in-law was recruited to the army.
But your father-in-law, did he had to fight in the War of Independence and the Six-Day War?
Yes, yes.
And Yom Kippur?
Yes, and he was wounded in the Six-Day War, but he managed, he came back home. My husband also fought in the battles in the First Lebanon War. And then we got married, and we have 5 children. And my oldest son, Ro'i, who is the grandson of Holocaust survivors, if you remember, in 2006, the State of Israel was attacked once again from Lebanon, from the north, by Hezbollah, who get their money from Iran, who calls for the destruction of the State of Israel and denies the Holocaust. And in that summer, my son, Ro'i, was like his father in a tank. And it was Friday, August 11th, when he called home to wish us a good Shabbos, a Shabbat Shalom, and to let us know that that evening their unit is going into Lebanon. It was horrible. It was horrible, and I only pleaded with him that if, whenever he's back in the country, he should call me and let me know that he's okay. And Saturday night came, and there was no text from Roy, and I tried to call him, and I reached his voicemail, And I was still trying to joke around. I said, hey, we made an agreement. He said, you're going to call, tell me what's going on. And a few minutes later, there was a knock on our door. And as I was going down the steps to open it, I could see soldiers standing there. And no Israeli mother wants to see soldiers at her doorsteps when her son is in the army. So I started yelling pretty much hysterically, and my daughter did open the door and let them in. And the first question that I could utter out of my mouth was, is Roy alive? And they said, yes, he's alive, he's critically injured. A missile penetrated his tank and exploded in front of his face. And he was wounded from head to toe. He was burned. He had more than 14 fractures in his body. His lungs were injured, but he was taken out of the tank and he was flown into Israel. And he was in intensive care for more than 5 weeks. We were fighting for his life. You pray to God that he will help us. And I had plenty of time to think, and at the time I had 2 young boys, 6 and 7, and I thought to myself, this is crazy. It is so dangerous in the army. As a mother, I have to protect my children. I can't send them to the army to get killed, to get injured. But as I was thinking these motherly thoughts, Reuven and Tzipora, the Holocaust survivors, came in to visit us in the family room in the hospital. And I got up to give them a hug. And immediately I understood that if I do not want my children and my grandchildren to go through what their grandparents went through, then yes, we will have to protect what we have. And they will have to go to the army.
So it was a miracle. You consider it also as a miracle?
Absolutely. We say Baruch Hashem every day, all day. We thank God for His mercy.
The period of the new state of Israel is very short in regards of the whole history of the Jewish people, and a lot of blessing is going out from Israel. Do you think that has something to do with the Jewish prophets?
When in the Bible it says that we will come back to the land from the 4 corners of the world, modern Zionism is the only time that it actually happens. When we came out of Egypt, we only came out of Egypt. After the first temple was destroyed and we were exiled, and we did come back after 70 years, we came back to the land from Babylon. The only time that we're coming back from Yemen, from Germany, from Russia, from the West and East, North and South, is in the 20th century, in the modern Zionism, in the modern rebirth of this Jewish state of Israel. So absolutely, I believe that we are very fortunate to live in a very, very meaningful time that what the prophets spoke about is actually happening. Also, the relationship that we are building with the Christian world is a part of that prophecy, right? That the nations of the world will understand that God gave the Jewish people the Bible, that they are the chosen people. I think all of that is something that should not be taken lightly and should not be taken for granted. And we have to appreciate it each and every day. And that's the way I see life, and that's the way I educate my children.
How is it for you to go back to the land who fathers or forefathers murdered 6 million Jews?
The way that I see it, and I think it's a very Jewish way of looking at things, we have to know the past, we have to remember it, but we have to forge ahead. The Jewish people, the survivors, never went back to revenge. That's not a Jewish way. We go forward. And today, Germany is one of Israel's allies, best allies in the world. So always remembering the past, in order to make sure that it never happens again. Going to Germany now, I see it as going to a friendly country, yes, with a very difficult past, but looking backwards and walking forward. That's the way I see it.
This building here at Yad Vashem, which shows the Holocaust in such an impressive way, was designed to be like a scar in the landscape. And the Holocaust is indeed like a scar in every Jewish soul. At the very end of the building, the narrowness gives way, and the building opens up with a grandiose view of the Judean mountains, which are now forested again, according to the words of ancient Jewish prophets who foresee a time when the Jewish people return to their homeland. One sentence I heard here in Yad Vashem today is of great significance at the present time. Everyone is important and should step out of indifference in the face of the resurgent anti-Semitism in our countries. The International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, is at the forefront of the fight against anti-Semitism. And she has a partnership with Yad Vashem, which is called the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem. Fascination Israel works to ensure that history is not forgotten. And may I ask you to help us with your donation so that we can continue doing programs like this. Thank you for joining us today. I say goodbye to you from Yad Vashem with a heartfelt shalom. Perhaps precisely in this, that a doomed man, in the final moment of his existence, as he glances into the abyss of annihilation with eyes stretched wide in horror, grasps the beauty of life and the power of creation.